Alright, we're going to talk about the Mora knife. This is the basic companion. Their kind of entry model, if you'd say, or their most common model is a better word. This is the price point's around $15 to $25 depending on when and where you buy it. I think I paid like 17 for this knife in particular. So, let's get into this. First off, it has this plastic sheath. It's pretty light. The attachment point, it looks like you can use some sort of like ball. I'm not sure. It looks like key mod. So it's that same sort of idea. And then if you look, it fits perfectly on about a 1.5-inch belt. Just goes right on, holds tightly, and that's typically how I carry it. Or I just hook it onto a strap on my backpack, which is also common. The knife, it's got a very grippy rubber handle, decent handle geometry, so it's kind of bellied out a little bit, and obviously down here too, and so you can get a really nice strong grip on it, and it's sure in the hand. Just the handle geometry and the rubber is pretty important. This knife I've had for years. They come with a Scandinavian grind, and this one personally I've used enough that it's, if you can see, it's got a secondary bevel, yeah, and because of this, it's a little bit easier to sharpen for me. I just throw it on my work sharp now. That really happened just from use. If you look at the edge, I've sharpened it enough that that's where the edge originally was, and it's come down just a hair. And this knife has been through it. There's lots of, I guess, polish wear. It's not really finished. It's a stainless. The edge isn't, I don't really consider that a modification. It's just a byproduct from me using it and how I sharpen it. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. The Scandinavian grind does offer a very sharp, very strong edge. I haven't noticed a difference, personally. But it's not something that I believe you need to just do immediately to this knife. The only modification I recommend, these come with the back is rounded. There's no sharp edge. I just sanded it. Well, I think I actually filed it, if I remember right. It's been years, guys. I'm sorry. I filed it just slightly, so on a ferro rod, it catches sparks a little bit better. I do use this for quite a bit of stuff. I carry it fly fishing. It's really handy. It's waterproof. Well, I say waterproof, it's rust proof. I carry it backpacking. I carry it camping. I use it to fillet fish. It's really a do-all be-all knife. And at the price point, it is a phenomenal knife. I can almost argue it can't be beat. The tang, this is where a lot of people on the internet might kind of shy away from it, because it's a 3/4 tang, so it comes to about here where my thumb's at. It doesn't extend all the way to the end. You just have a plastic end, which it would be nice, and some of their other models do have the tang extending out. And so you can, if you had a metal end, it'd be better at kind of grinding or smashing. Now, personally for myself, I don't think I've ever had a experience where the plastic didn't suffice. It wasn't hard enough or something, and you can see I've used it quite a bit. It's scuffed up from being carried too. But it's never not been hard enough for what I'm doing. And typically, the only time I can really think of when I use the butt of the knife to break something up is cooking. I know that kind of sounds silly, and a lot of people don't think about that, but I enjoy cooking quite a bit, and I typically, if I'm car camping or something, I'll bring some ingredients like fresh garlic or basil, rosemary, just herbs and spices like that aren't necessarily processed and ready to just throw into the dish or throw onto whatever you're cooking. And so I think for food processing, it's something important, but for camping it's not necessarily a concern. Now I'm sure there's instances if you're trying to eat like shelled seafood, that's a thing. If you're trying to like survive off of that, that's not necessarily a concern for me. I live inland. I don't put myself in situations where I have to survive off of limpets or snails or anything else along those lines. Now, that doesn't mean this knife wouldn't work for it. I think the handle is plenty strong enough, and you can also use the tip of it. You could also use a rock or something else. So I'm kind of going on a tangent about that, but it's really not a deal breaker on this knife. And at the $15 mark, you really can't beat this knife. I think really this knife has to be one of my favorites. It's at this point it's got a little bit of sentimental value for me. It's been all over the place with me, and it's done a lot for me. It's just been an amazing knife. The big thing for me though is especially when I first had it, is it's a tool. At the end of the day, it's a tool. I'm sorry I'm reflecting into the camera quite a bit. And because this is just a tool, if I drop it into the river, if I drop it into the leaves and I never see it again, if I forget it in someone's car and I never see it again, or it gets mixed in with someone else's gear, I might not necessarily be happy or content, you know, but I'm not going to be heartbroken. It's $15. And so for the quality, the price, and the overall usability, I highly recommend this knife. A lot of people will take like a Ranger band and put it on, and then put a ferro rod onto their sheath. Mora does offer another knife. I think they call it their Bushcraft, and it has a built-in ferro rod and some of the features I talked about. They also have a knife with a ferro rod built into the handle. I think those are cool, but you're starting to hit the $50 to $60 mark from my understanding, and I may be wrong. I'd have to look again. I think the Bushcraft is around $50, $60, and so you have to look at what it gets you. I carry a fire starting kit in my bag when I'm backpacking, and it's just it's several different things to start a fire. I have a couple lighters in there. I have some small tinder, typically like fire rope, which is it's got like kerosene and wax in it. And then I also carry like a ferro rod in there, and that's about it. But I have a dedicated fire kit like that, because if I can start a fire with a lighter in half the time it would take me to build up a fire from sparks, then I'm content. If for some reason my lighters aren't working, which at higher altitude lighters can have more problems, and in like wet environments, so rain, high humidity, just the Bix lighters can, I really recommend having a ferro rod, just because of how reliable it is. But it's not, for how I use the knife and how I use my gear, it's not necessary to have a ferro rod on my knife. And in fact, I think it would kind of inhibit how I use the knife a lot of times, because it's easy to put in with my fishing gear, with my fly fishing gear, or like my bass fishing gear. It's just a handy knife. I've used it to make cut bait for catfishing, though I don't do that very often. And so, at the weight, the price, the size, it's just a handy knife, and there's no reason not to own one. Honestly, like $15, and it's compares to Benchmade's and other extremely high-end brands. I would pick the Mora knife every single day. But that is my 2 cents. I highly recommend at $15 going and picking yourself up one, trying it. If you hate it, you can throw it in a fishing box, or you can throw it away. It's $15. It's cheaper than a lot of steaks. You can just... It's nearly disposable, which that sounds silly. It's a knife. But at $15, it's not something that is irreplaceable or just unbelievably expensive and just not cost worthy for being careless with, which you shouldn't be careless with any knife. And I've had this one for years. I haven't lost it. I keep good track of it. But if I did, I wouldn't be heartbroken. That's what I keep getting back to. And that's kind of philosophy of use. It's a tool, and I treat it like a tool. I keep it sharp, and I keep it... I make sure the blade's dry, even though it's stainless, because I'm used to being around carbon steel, so it's just a habit I have. But if you keep it sharp and clean, you're never not going to be happy with it. So I'll have a link in the description for the best price I can find on Amazon right now. So you can order it right to your door. Depending on where you're at, you can probably get it the next day. So that's that. Hope you enjoyed the tabletop review. I'm hoping to post once weekly with a tabletop, and then as I do trips and stuff, start posting that content as well. So I'm really hoping to get into the swing of this. If you liked this video, please make a comment, like, subscribe. It's all super helpful right now. I'm a small channel. But if you didn't like the video, you can dislike it. I wouldn't appreciate that, but it's your own prerogative. And if you have suggestions, please leave them in the comments. Like I said, I'm a small channel. I haven't ever posted frequently, and so any suggestions will be big for me right now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day.